So Ron Fournier may be away from refereeing, but he is by no means away from hockey. Here is Larry Robinson, banking behind that came on to Rick Green, and Green stepped into by Tocchet. Even strength as the second period gets underway. Sutter lick in period gets underway. Ron Sutter given a good solid lick by Corson. Puck ricocheted off Corson, fed away by Robinson. Now it's Sutter the prop, and then over to Tocchet, tightly checked. Sutter unable to reach, and turning with it is Bob Gainey right in front of his own goal. Little tap feathered out to Corson. Corson has to contend with Jeff Chychrun. And Chychrun just leans him right out and then bumps him to the boards. And the puck sent all the way down. Ron Sutter may be the first one there, so Roy may have to play. Oh, he came up with a good fake there. Meanwhile, icing has been waved off. I wonder if the linesman bought the fake too.
I wonder. I thought it was going to be called all the way down. Ray Scampanella was signaling that icing was going to be called.
Chelios given a shoulder by Ron Sutter, and now Prop bangs into a man. It is kept alive by Howe. Then along for Sutter, and now without a helmet, Chelios moves in alongside Tim Kerr. Sutter came by. Chelios able to pull away. Has it knocked off his stick by Prop. Back it comes to Howe, and a pad stop made by Patrick Roy, and a stoppage of play. Tim Kerr rarely squares off in these sorts of things, but he and Corson were having words.
It's been that kind of series, very tight, obviously a lot of contact. But that seemed like a peaceful conversation right there. There's not much Tim Kerr could do if he dropped the gloves. He has a bad right hand, a bad right thumb. And I asked him before the game to try and rate his ability now with his hand. There's Tocchet raking Chris Chelios into the boards and ripping his helmet off. But I asked him to give me a percentage of the hand. He said it's only to control the puck. It's only about a 50-50 deal. He can shoot by holding the shaft of his stick basically in his 4 fingers. But to really maneuver the puck and stick handle, he has to wrap his thumb around it, and that's when he has trouble. He said, shooting's not that bad, but Montreal doesn't let me get open that often, and I haven't had a chance to get many shots away. It's when I get the puck in open ice and have to do something with it that it's a big problem.
You golfers out there that may not have played hockey, just think about trying to drive one off the tee without using the thumb on one hand. You can't get any power, and the other thing is you can't get any control.
I think I should try that. I might hit it a little straighter.
Here's Acton off the lockup with Ludwig. Puck dumped along, and McVie tried to clear, but Samuelson kept it. Spun the curve, backhander. Oh, and Roy looked behind, but he had it.
Well, this is one time when Patrick Roy makes a real good decision by going down. On a spin-around backhander, unless you have a lot of time, it's really hard to get the puck up high. And you can see that Tim Kerr, right in the center of your screen, will have to reach for this puck. He reaches out, and when he turns, he knows he doesn't have very much time. So instead of pulling it in tight to his body, see Keith Acton go in after Patrick Roy right after that.
I'm just thinking of the stick in Kerr's hands. That backhander would probably be easier for him than a forehand shot. Samuelson a shot, and that one went wide. Stepping to it is Chelios. Popped one off the glove of Lemieux, but it's brought ahead by Skruvlin. There'll be a penalty coming up to the Flyers. Puck poked away, Kerr touches, and a Flyer will go off. There'll be a power play to Montreal when we come back.
Keith Acton off for high sticking. Chris Chelios right there. He is playing with a flak jacket. That makes 3 Flyers now. Dave Poulin and Tim Kerr put on flak jackets, and Kurt Muntz said no Flyers ever taken one off once you put one on. Dave Brown used to wear one when he was here, and even Keith Acton said, I hardly even feel it. It's great protection. It doesn't really inhibit your movement out there. It's the biggest reason why guys don't take them off. It feels really secure when you have one on.
Chelios hammers one that hit off the back of the goal. Bobby Smith in, and a drive that went wide. Holding it is Chelios, accompanied by the Blues and by Naslund, to whom he passes. Now over to Svoboda. Naslund again, and a shot hopped off of the man in front for the Canadiens, and that was Mike Keane. Here's Dave Poulin hustling back, and Svoboda dives and can't come up with a nice brush over to Prop. Oh, and the shot was wide. Rebound thrown off Roy by Poulin. 2 spectacular plays by Dave Poulin. Here is Naslund coming on, and a shot is snared by Reggett. Stoppage of play. series of plays.
First, the Ken Reggett save. What a glove save on Matt Naslund. But you can't imagine, unless you've played the game, how spectacular these two plays are. Poulin came from about 10 feet back to catch Swoboda. He went down. Watch this diving one-hand pass. Through Chris Chelios to Brian Propp. Brian Propp, you know, wanted that one real bad. Patrick Waugh wasn't really out of the net all that far, and Propp just shot it wide. Poulin just about got a carom on that last swat out in front. But Patrick Waugh, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, the guy is cool, too. I don't think anything phases him. And at the other end, we didn't know much about Ken Reggett, but when you can just sort of waltz into a Game 7 the way he did in Pittsburgh and play the way he did, you know, he's a pretty cool customer, too. One thing goaltenders can't do is overreact.
Here is Robinson handing back over. Desjardins worked it to Richer, couldn't get it to the front. Now it's Corson there. Looks for Walter. He's well watched. Hurried shot by Desjardins, and that one skipped wide. 40 seconds to go on the power play. Richer glides and passes across. Angle shot, score! The Canadiens connect on the power play. It is Corson tipping it home. Montreal leads in the game 2-0, and the Canadiens have their fourth power play of the series.
On this play, Richer moves it over to Eric Desjardins, and this kid has simply gotten stronger every game. Desjardins looks, fakes the shot. Ken Reggett has to rely on somebody else to get the open guy here. Mark Howe moved to Desjardins, and Kjell Samuelsson moved in front. What happened was Ron Sutter and Dave Poulin were playing very aggressively at the top, which they have to do, but they didn't get back in quickly enough to pick up that deflected goal. And Montreal on the power play strikes again. They lead 2-0.
We mentioned 4 power play goals. Here's Murphy with a shot. That went off his skate. And that is in 15 opportunities. So the Canadiens are better than 25%. Wells a drive, and that after the whistle stopping play. Corson from Desjardins and Richer. At 3:14, Corson's third of the playoffs and second of this series. And it's a power play goal. Saw Jay Wells. I remember Scott Wells, his father, after the 7th game in Pittsburgh said, boy, am I ever glad that Jay had an opportunity to play on a team like this that battled so hard and emerged from their division. Ahead now comes Svoboda. Rolls one along that Reggett is there to get, and then got crunched up with Murphy. Puck feathered around by Wells, and Murphy couldn't keep it. Now it is Walter turning it along for Courtnall. Courtnall, seeing limited duty tonight, is able to control behind. Courtnall looks to the front. No one is free just yet. Courtnall with a rising shot, and that just snapped right out of the air and held by Reggett.
Well, if you want to talk about big acquisitions, it was a quiet move when Montreal got Russ Courtnall from Toronto for John Kordic after 9 games in the Toronto uniform. Russ Courtnall went to Montreal. He saw that he just casually stepped out and tried a sharp angle high shot. You wonder what kind of potential there is in a lot of the Toronto players. It gets unlocked very often when they get away from there.
Yeah, it does. That's a team that missed the playoffs, and he went like a man freed from slavery, I'm sure, to a team that was ranked as one of the 2 best all year and thus stood a good chance in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, rags to riches for Russ Courtnall as he watches this play develop. Jeff Chikrin right along now to Sutter. Ron Sutter flung one in front that is directed away by Roy. Dave Poulin moves in deep. Hands over to Mellanby. Yanks a little pass, and Poulin nearly flicked it home. Puck punch back to Chikrin. Fires one, and that one went off Walter and wide. Sutter, nice check behind the net on Green, but the puck forced along to Walter, hammered to the boards by Poulin. What a display of leading by example that Captain Dave Poulin has been showing in this game tonight. It is Carbonneau dropping it in deep, and Jeff Chikrin goes back to take it. 15-15 to go in the second period. Shots are 14-7 Philadelphia. Montreal leading in the game 2-0. Pass from Acton, skip back to Kartner. And Terry Kartner has Derek Smith moving along with him. It is wafted right in near Roy. He sets it up for Chelios. Derek Smith was moving on him, so Chelios got away. The pass came ahead for Smith. Couldn't get it through the big skates of Shell Samuelson, and it's brought on by Derek Smith. Watched by Chelios, and Smith spun one wide. Now it is Mellenby to get it. Flipped a weak one that is brought back up by Bobby Smith. Works up the right wing to Mike Keane. Along with Naslund, the play is to Smith, a backhander. Kicked out and a rebound. And that also saved by Reggett. Derek Smith back up for the Flyers, but he flipped it into the glove of Chelios. He sends it out of play. Clock stopped with 14:27 to go in the second period. Carbonneau, of course, is the goal scorer. There you see the vital statistics, and as you see those, we'll give you another one on Chris Chelios. In the first 120 minutes, in other words, the first two games, Chelios played 65 minutes and 3 seconds. He played over half the game. Even strength, shorthanded, power play, all of it. Puck sent back beyond the reach of Ludwig. Mike Bullard rams Ludwig to the boards and glass, but Ludwig recovers to shake this one along for Bob Gainey. The veteran winger, Gainey, able to steer away, has Riche alongside and hands it across to Chelios. Creeps in and looks, and the pass to Gainey, he scores! Bob Gainey on a setup from Chris Chelios.
You know, I thought the Flyers were going to get themselves in a jackpot deep in the other end because they had 3 forwards in behind the icing line, behind the goal line. But they came back and recovered. What happens here is that a couple of forwards let Bob Gainey go. Everybody is mesmerized by Chris Chelios. And how many times have we seen it? When you let somebody cross the blue line and set up, that's when the coverage breaks down or when you're able to find an open guy. Mark Howe moves on Chris Chelios, but not before he can find Bob Gainey wide open, cutting on the other side. Samuelson and Howe played it right. They shifted over to take on Chelios and Riche, but on the weak side, there was no coverage.
So the Canadiens may think about tightening the vise now. They've gotten 3 goals here at the Spectrum and have a 3-goal lead midway in the second period. Murphy with a shot, and that's picked away by Larry Robinson, and Sutter tried to flip one in front. Knocked down by a Montreal stick, but played by Sutter to pocket a backhander. Oh, and that's saved by Roy. Rebounded, everyone looking at it, but the whistle has blown, and Andy Van Hellemond says it's not a cross. Now the light comes on. The goal judge had seen that it had gone across the line, but that long after the whistle had been blown.
Somewhat delayed, wouldn't you say? Andy Van Hellemond is standing there flailing back and forth with his arms. See what happens here. Ron Sutter, nice play, dumps to Rick Tocchet. Boy, did that go off the post? How did it get behind Patrick Roy? He doesn't even know where it is at this point. It is still under him. There it is, and it's not across the line yet. Now it is. But the fans are booing here, but they can't see out of the screen that Andy Van Hellemond by that time had blown it down. And Van Hellemond was in good position right behind the net.
Now, we have talked a lot about replays and so forth, and there is a big screen here at the Spectrum, as there are in several arenas, that show replays. They showed that one, and you can understand why sometimes officials might not particularly want it.
But you know, Mike, on that play, I'm just thinking with Van Hellemond behind the net, at what point did he lose sight of it? I mean, Roy didn't know where it was, but it sure might have been in plain view to a guy standing behind the net. You know, it's only when it disappears from sight, when it's tied up, that he's supposed to blow it down, isn't it? Or when it's smothered, when it's stopped. You know.
When he loses sight, that's the time. All right, meanwhile, puck works back out, and Terry Kartner will have to go back to get it. I guess that's the one other thing that in terms of replays on critical situations that you would wonder about is that there's no way for audio to be worked in, and sometimes you might not have, as we did in that case, any signal from the official that was in our camera range at the time. So we couldn't really tell at what point Van Hellemond had his arms up. Here is Kartner sliding one to the corner, turning with it is Svoboda, chased down by Okas and Asado with limited ice time tonight. Puck comes to the back, and Kartner a shot, and that one knocked down. Now it is Green outletting on to Courtnall. Up the wing it comes, and Carbonneau drops to Courtnall on the drive, and a stick save made by Reggett as the Canadiens just came barreling in gloriously.
Well, now is the time that the Flyers have to really dig in, Mike. It's going to be tough enough coming back from a 3-goal deficit. And the Flyers are going to sag a little bit now. That rush by Montreal resulted in another good scoring chance. Watch this play by Guy Carbonneau. As Terry Carter moves over to him, he fakes the shot. What a drop pass to Russ Courtnall. Courtnall got the shot away because Acton was moving back on him. But it's tread water time for the Flyers until they get composure back, maybe get one on Patrick Roy.
That was something that was very hard to come by in the first period in particular when they had their better scoring opportunities. If you're just joining us, the Flyers opened with a flourish, had 10 of the first 11 shots on goal, and some of them were high-quality opportunities, but Roy kept the game scoreless. Then on Montreal's second shot of the game, they scored a breakaway, last-minute sort of breakaway by Guy Carbonneau on a backhand goal. Corson and Gainey have scored here in the second, and it's 3-0 Montreal. The series even at 1. Derek Smith with a pass to Poulin up the wing to Scott Mellenby. Mellenby slams on the brakes and feeds Samuelson, and his shot went just wide as Poulin was jamming at the front. How a shot! That deflected high on Roy, and he's able to hang on. 11:37 to go in the second period of play. It remains the Canadiens by 3. To take the face-off. He'll be in opposite Ryan Walter. Tocchet on the right of Sutter. On the left is Brian Propp. To many of us, a surprise starter tonight, having missed only one game with a concussion from that devastating check applied to him by Chris Chelios in the corner boards and glass at Montreal in Game 1. Left point Howe, right point Samuelson. Corson glides through, so the face-off delayed. More delays. And a warning from Gord Brossiker. Now off the face-off, the puck tapped along by Walter. Ryan Walter able to scoop one on his backhand ahead to Corson. Corson with a pair of goals in this series. So also does Guy Carbonneau, and those are the only 2 goal scorers in the series thus far. It is Tocchet. Turning back out, he's got Propp. Lays it on to Sutter. Now it's Propp cruising up the wing, and that one is tipped high and is thrown back towards Samuelson. Rolls it along towards Propp. Checked by Robinson, and a centering pass is hoisted away by Desjardins from the reach of Ron Sutter, and we have a 3-on-2. Now a 3-on-3. Pass trickled through to Corson. Save! Rebound! On! Another save! As getting his pad on both of them, Ken Reagan, and now Richer barreled into Brian Propp.
Well, Ken Reagan is doing his share to try and hold the Flyers in. 2 outstanding saves, one on Corson, another one on Richer. But the Montreal Canadiens are getting their chances now, and they lead 3-0. An innocent rush up the ice, but Bob Gainey makes this count by just putting it right at Gord Murphy. See, he passed it right there to Murphy. I think it surprised him. Corson went in, super save by Reagan, and all Richer had to do was get it up. But you still see one of the obstacles. See Reagan with his pad up in the air? Goaltender will get whatever he can up when he's down. Reagan at that time had one pad up in case Richer went high.
That's a good point. I think Murphy was surprised by it. I mean, how many times does a guy throw it at you when he's coming down on you?
But I think Gainey wanted to try and slip it between Murphy's stick and his body. And it was one of those plays that reminded me of the goal that Sinisalo got in Montreal. Murphy hit that puck and slowed it down. I think if he doesn't touch it, that goes in a little too far for Corson to get. Poulin in Game 1 made a nice pass on a 2-on-2 that Desjardins got a piece of. That slowed it down enough for Sinisalo to get it and go in behind him and score on his breakaway.
Here it's 10:47 left in the second period. You're just joining us. Montreal leading the Flyers 3-0. Lemieux a shot, and that's sticked away by Ken Reagan. It is brushed back out by Chychrun, but taken by Rick Green. Across now to Svoboda. Lays it back up the wing, and Skrudland taken to the wall by Chychrun. Puck lost, though, to Brian Skrudland again. Staggering after him is Kartner. Centering pass, and that shot shanked by McPhee off Chychrun. Al Secord turned one out that Peter Svoboda is able to grab. Sent back on for McPhee. Starts up the wing and fires, and a stick save made that time by Regan. It is Secord. Took a hit from Lemieux and shoved him back as you watch the play develop to Tim Kerr. Wrist shot. Oh, and that one with a good catch that time. Patrick Roy, and the net dislodged as everyone went driving for it.
And I think it was Keith Acton that knocked it off, Mike. He may have even hit it with his ribs. One of the toughest things about protecting your ribs is you can protect them with a flak jacket, but anytime you move, if you have torn muscles in there, your rib cage feels it. Doesn't matter if you move your arms or your legs. Let's watch it. There's the save by Patrick Roy. There goes Acton. Well, he kind of got it on the hip, didn't he? Hit it with his elbow, then got it down low with his hip. I would think that with Keith Acton's style, he's always bent over, that he's obviously wide open to getting whacked in the ribs with those taller guys just coming down with their sticks on him. That's his style. He's short anyway. I'll be really surprised if Keith Acton takes the flak jacket off.
He said it's so light and weight, he doesn't feel like he's wearing anything.
You know, he has better protection than people think because he's so short. His pants actually come up high and protect some of his rib cage, but there's a good 6 inches in there that doesn't have anything on it between his shoulder pads and his pants.
Remember the first one? They had to be strapped onto an excessive shoulder pad arrangement, and it made you look like Herman Munster out there. But like everything else, the equipment has become more sophisticated in these 1980s too. Puck tipped along by Bullard, able to get it to Eklund, then across, and Sinisalo tried to return it, but it was dead, and Eklund could not follow through. Markal will try by playing over to Samuelson. Then along to Sinisalo, a pass clicks along to Mike Bullard. Bullard starting to accelerate, wants to turn by, centered one, but that one went off Sinisalo. Sinisalo bumped off by Carbonneau. Puck brushed back out again by Ryan Walter, and it is Reggett who's going to have to come out of his goal and deal with Courtnall. Little shovel back over to Markal as the clock ticks down now to 9 minutes and 15 seconds remaining in the second period. 3-0 Montreal. Samuelson with some nice moves to get in. Now Sutter tried to drive one, but Ludwig blocked that one away. Billy Eklund to get it, but Courtnall is there. Eklund still, and Courtnall knocks it away, but to Wells, and his shot trickled wide. Ron Sutter moves over, plays it to Tocchet. Knocked away, though, by Ludwig. And the Canadians try to clear, but Naslund fails as Murphy was pinching, and it's shot out of play at the Flyers bench, and so we get a halt to play. We want to remind you of this Stanley Cup special for all Flyers fans. Tonight you can order a Fighting Back video for $19.95 and get a Ron Hextall commemorative T-shirt absolutely free. Operators are standing by, so the number to call is 215-465-4500. 215-465-4500. 215-465-4500.
What's that number again?
215-465-4500. They used to say in the old Broadcasting 101, you had to say something 4 times to get it to sink in. I don't know if that's underestimating all of us as listeners and viewers to ads or not.
I think that might have been radio.
Oh, okay. Puck shot back around, and here's Ken Reggett to get it. Reggett with a pass that handcuffed Jay Wells, brushed along by Murphy, and now it is Desjardins rolling it along. Turning with this is Bobby Smith. Has a man breaking in. It's Robinson, and it was tipped away from him by Tocchet, then swung off the net by Robinson. Knocked down on the play is Keane by Wells. Wells trying to get loose for it. Able to tap it along for Brian Propp, who brings it back out. Nice little flip pass to Sutter. Sutter steers back on, and in with it comes Murphy. His pass is up the wing to Brian Propp. Backhander, and that's sent away. Ron Sutter couldn't control. Naslund flips. And it is tipped further by Bobby Smith and turned back along by Murphy. Now Naslund able to dart away from Propp and lay it up the wing nicely to Mike Keane. Keane comes across, lays a pass over for Bobby Smith. Shift change on for the Canadians, and so this one will go right along to Propp, but a good cut off by Gainey. Bob Gainey's pass is lost by Karkner and then taken by Bobby Smith. Followed up by Green. Back along to Poulin, who connects with Brian Propp. Propp bangs one off the boards for Poulin, and then Karkner goes in hard with one of the Canadians, and Bobby Smith comes along as well. So play is stopped with 7:28 to go in this second period. Richer gets up. His team is up 3-0.
I'm Jim Martindale, and I'd like to tell you about the garden weasel. This 5-in-1 tool...
You know, journalistically, something just crossed my mind that I was negligent to mention earlier in the game tonight, and I should have. We had asked you to kind of trust us to watch the warm-up carefully for you with cameras and videotape before this game. Nothing happened tonight. We had had some pre-game shenanigans involving some one-upsmanship of turning the net down and all of that before the games 1 and 2 started, but nothing tonight. Now here's Richer in, and he fired a shot that went wide. I was just looking at my checklist and realized that one was right at the top, and I failed to mention it earlier. Puck wedged around, and Mike Bullard couldn't play. Now it is Mellanby dumping one behind to Bullard again. Looks to Derek Smith to Mellanby, and his short side shot was off the outside of the goal and became lodged there. Now Corson bumps back with Mellanby, and something could develop out of this.
Boy, Scott Mellanby has played such an outstanding game, and you may be able to see his lip. Right there. He took 8 stitches in the lip. He said it was the most painful thing he'd ever had done. And it was funny because the day of Game 2, I talked to Scott Mellanby. We talked about getting cut, and he said, or at least I told him, the most painful place you could get cut is either in the eyelid or the lip. And didn't he go out and get cut right there? When I go near him, I expect to see the sign of the cross to ward off the vampire that's coming towards him. But it's a very painful area to get stitched up in. The Novocaine needles just are terrible.
Remind me not to talk to you about laryngitis until the season's over.
Okay.
Acton with Walter on this face-off. Eklund and Kerr, the wingers. Samuelson to work it back with Howe. Off the tie-up, Kerr in front, and it was checked away from Kerr before he could get a shot away. The man who did it was Craig Ludwig. Puck banked along, and it came near Reggett. Reggett sets it up and flips one that carry him back along to Eklund. 6.5 to go, second period. 3-0 in favor of Montreal. Good guarding of the line by Craig Ludwig as McPhee tried to shake a hit, but it's brought right back on by Kerr. Here's Kerr with a wrist shot, and that one went wide. Acton along to step into Claude Lemieux, who shoves back. Puck came to Kerr. Little pass to Eklund, but the Canadians quickly closed ranks. Lemieux and Chelios doing it that time, and now Chelios has the honors of dropping it in, and McPhee goes in with Samuelson. Lemieux with a centering pass, nothing but orange and black there, but now a throw that went off the glass by Carbonneau. Kjell Samuelson connects with Eklund in a second period that has seen the Flyers get 7 shots, the Canadians 10. Tim Kerr chased to the corner by Desjardins. Moving in is Eklund. Kerr and Desjardins lock up along the boards. Right back it comes to them. The battle by just inches here as Eklund tries to turn. Got a shot away that went off of Desjardins' stick. So the Canadians are showing some very strong defense as the Flyers try to pass or shoot. They're not even getting through to Patrick Roy. And a late hit by Lemieux on Wells as the icing was called.
There's no penalty on this play. But I don't know what Claude Lemieux's problem is. Who's he talking to? Gord Brosiker?
Yeah, must have been his claim is that he might not have heard the call by the officials that there was going to be icing, and so he assumed he had a check coming.
I think Jay Wells at this point is looking over at Andy Van Hellemond and seeing if he's going to call anything, but...
Wells will stay out. He'll have Murphy with him on defense. It is Sutter with Talkin on the right and Propp on the left. Robinson and Desjardins, that unique tandem on defense. One of the more veteran players in hockey and one of the more rookie. Here's Murphy handing back over to Wells. His shot is blocked away. And it is Carbonneau connecting with Walter. He's got a man ahead. Courtnall hammers one. He scores! Ken Reggett does not feel that it was in, but Andy Van Hellemond said it came in and went out so quickly you didn't know. The Canadians have gotten their 4th goal, and they have a 4-0 lead.
Well, not only does Russ Courtnall have a whole bunch of speed, he's got a rocket for a shot. That puck came out so quickly, Ken Reggett didn't even know that it had gone in behind him. There you see it. It bulged the twine pretty well. Ryan Walter made a good play. He made sure he crossed his own blue line and got out of his zone before he put it up to Courtnall to avoid the two-line pass. And Courtnall just blasted it, loaded it short side. Montreal leads 4-0.
Big hole for the Flyers to try to get out of now, down by 4. If you saw the first 10 minutes, you would have thought that the Flyers, who were very wound up, and that's predictable, especially when the site of a series changes and new turf has to be established. It is normally the home team that just comes out barreling in the first 10 minutes. Here's a bouncer by Prop in on goal and having a whack at it, Sutter. Now Sutter shoves a bit with Peter Svoboda. But it was Montreal's Patrick Roy who kept the Flyers off the scoreboard so his team could fashion this sort of lead. Backhand attempt by Sinisato knocked down, and Keane starts it ahead to Bobby Smith. Run off by Kartner, and Smith reached out and appeared to have put his glove on the top of Kartner's shoulder. Chychrun then back to Kartner, and then along for Secord, but it is Green jamming it along. Chychrun goes back to take this from Ken Reggett with just over 4 minutes to play in the second period. Montreal ahead in the game 4-0 as Kartner flips one that went beyond Sinisato and down. And back to get it is Peter Svoboda. And with that, we have an icing call and the faceoff to come back near Reggett.
Peter Svoboda just finishing his shift. I think Peter Svoboda is the most underrated defenseman on the Montreal team, Mike. Everybody talks about Chris Chelios. Of course, Larry Robinson has a name. Peter Svoboda is in his 5th year in a Montreal uniform, and he's only 23 years old. He was a first-round pick, 5th overall, drafted right off the Czechoslovakian junior team by Montreal, and he's just gotten better every year.
Boy, don't ever say that European players don't have some macho in them, too. Bill, you were telling me a story about the Boston series and Svoboda.
Boy, he took an elbow from Ray Neufeld, knocked his helmet off, knocked a tooth out, cut him in the lip, picked up his helmet, went to the bench, never missed a shift, was out there for the next one. He's a lot more durable than a lot of people give him credit for.
He's not very big either. Here comes Richer, slithered a shot wide, and Reggett comes out, and Richer got there first. Flyers are wilting a little bit, I think. You can see that the Canadiens seem to be having more of that verve and confidence, and they're winning the races to more of the puck. Puck shot out of play this time with 3:09 to go in the second period. See the Flyers making a change at their bench.
There's Father John Casey, and he is all decked out tonight. I guess he wants this game pretty bad, doesn't he?
He sure does. He was honored for 50 years in the priesthood on the night of Game 2, and they had the ceremony at 4:30 so that they could have all the festivities done by 7:30 when the game began. Oh, yeah, he cares a lot. And the jersey that he's wearing, that he's got covered up by that jacket, has a number 50 on it for 50 years. That was the presentation the Flyers made to him on that night, 2 nights ago. Kerr and McPhee aren't behaving, and so they're lectured back as Acton is about to take the draw with Skrudland, and it quips right over to Desjardins. Eric Desjardins with a pass back over to Larry Robinson. Robinson now slides it back over to Desjardins, and that ricocheted away. Desjardins brings it further. Dumps one that hopped over toward Gord Murphy. Murphy jams it along to Wells with 2 minutes and 45 seconds to go in this second period. Skrudland locked up against the boards. Puck worked back over. Quick shot by Lemieux went wide. Up with it is Tim Kerr, and Kerr's pass sailed by Eklund. Flipped along to Brian Skrudland. And Skrudland's pass is tipped away by Eklund and gathered in by Jay Wells. Fans are starting the Let's Go Flyers sing-song chant, hoping that it'll cause at least one goal to go up on the board, and maybe the Canadiens will recoil a little bit. But right now, they are the stronger team with this 4-0 lead in the second period. It is dropped back in deep, and Reggett is there to slug it around, but too far for Eklund. Cut off by Carbonneau, put right on goal, and Reggett has to block it away. It is Tim Kerr with a crisp pass on now to Eklund, surrounded by red, white, and blue, and it's Carbonneau to flip it back out. Jay Wells drops it back in.
You can see Montreal now, Mike, not only has their 2 defensemen back, but they will almost always have 1 forward back as well. 3 men back. Here comes Courtnall again.
Big drive and a pad stop by Reggett. picked up by Kartner. Kartner's pass is back checked away by Carbonneau, and Courtnall able to take it free. Rick Green right back along to Carbonneau again. And Carbonneau flops one that Ryan Walter goes back to chase. Walter tripped up Chychrun, and Sutter took Walter to the boards. Along the boards, the puck squibs to Kartner in the last minute and 20 seconds of the period. This one directed away by Guy Carbonneau, and back in he starts. Courtnall is ready, but the pass came across and was tipped by Kartner. Back now to Ron Sutter. Left it behind, and it is Courtnall, then kicking one along to Green. Green dropping it back in. Down to the last minute. Weak pass, and Gainey almost reached it as Jeff Chychrun had trouble. So the Flyers are going to have to recover during the 15 minutes that we have as intermission time and try to make some adjustments here to get back in this game in the third period. From the 10-minute mark of the first on to the end of the second, it has been all Montreal. Samuelson with a pass that connects on with Dave Poulin. Knocked down from him and worked ahead by Corson. Samuelson able to flick it further, but it is Chris Chelios there. Chelios dropped it back in, then took the obligatory hit from Derek Smith. Here is Samuelson. Pass came on to Poulin and then up for Derek Smith, but that one went by him. It is Ludwig back. He got there first, and icing is called, and he was barreled into by Mellanby, and there may be more here.
Boy, those stitches in Scott Mellanby's lip aren't holding him back. Big Craig Ludwig, who's been a real tower of power on defense for Montreal for a lot of years. A Wisconsin native. He's from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, but if you ever see his birthplace and his home listed, there's Mellanby taking him out, you'll see it listed as Rhinelander. Like a lot of people that live in rural areas, you got to find the town that has the hospital, and Rhinelander had the hospital. Beaver Dam didn't. So that's why Ludwig is listed as a native of Rhinelander, Wisconsin. He goes around trying to correct people.
Remember, Neil Sheehy was born right up near the border, had to be born in a Canadian hospital because it was closer than the Minnesota
Fort Francis,
town.
right.
So he winds up a dual citizen. And can pick whose money and whose interest rate and all the other stuff that he wants. Puck sent in loudly to the boards. Chelios is there, locked up with Poulin. Ron Sutter can't get through, and it's Chelios playing it as the horn sounds to end a solid second period for the Canadiens, and one that the Flyers will lament over for these next 15 minutes. Corson from Desjardins and Richer. Gainey from Chelios and Ludwig. Courtnall from Walter and Carbonneau at the end of two. Gavin loose on the rebound. Play is stopped as we get a big jam up of players around the crease. Boy, you talk about balanced scoring. The Canadiens have had it tonight as we get a chance to see this again.
Ron Sutter again on the draw. Ends up with Terry Kartner moving in, and you know, Rick Tocchet got a piece of that and actually deflected it right into Patrick Roy. And there rages again the battle between Rick Tocchet and Craig Ludwig.
Carbonneau has a goal and an assist. Ryan Walter with 2 assists. And the rest of, here's Chychrun with a shot. The rest of the points are a player apiece. Courtnall had trouble with Ray Scapanello's checking. This one is dropped back off to Chychrun. Scapanello's the linesman. Buck flipped across now, and Ron Sutter had it brushed away. Larry Robinson patrolling behind, dumped it back off to Walter. Ryan Walter with a pass ahead, and it is popped, diving right into Corson. The puck flung back to Howe. 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go in the third period. May be able to notice a lot of red seats down near the ice that are now empty as the fans feel this one has been decided. And the way the Canadiens have played defensively with just a brilliant exhibition tonight, who can argue? Eklund handing over to Samuelson. Big blast, ricochets off the glass to Larry Robinson. Robinson with his 17th consecutive year in the playoffs. You'd think it was a long time ago when these two teams first met back in '73. Well, Robinson was in that one, too.
You know, Mike, another thing that makes Montreal so hard to come back on, they don't take penalties. They have had 1 penalty tonight. The Flyers have had 1 power play, and that makes it tough as well. You just keep your fingers crossed that you're going to get a couple of power plays in the third period. Montreal doesn't give them to you. In the last 6 years, the Montreal Canadiens 4 times have given up fewer power plays than anybody else in the league. The other 2 times, they finished second. So they are a disciplined team.
They are the lightest team in penalties in the playoffs. Of all the 16 that have competed, their average number of minutes per game the lightest. And their defense is the best. Their goals against average is the best. And that's why they are about to take a lead in this series tonight. Flyers played them on even terms in the second game for a good deal of it, but now we get a whistle and stoppage of play. A cross-checking call has been signaled, but it will be a Flyer, Dave Poulin, who will be going off the ice.
Want to take better pictures? Get the Canon EOS 750, the only autofocus SLR with a flash like this, and a system with computers and motors in every lens. Here, try it. Try the zoom. Easy, right? Well, that's EOS. You like it. Can I get it back now?
Canon EOS 750. Photography. Pure and simple.
Well, Dave Poulin didn't like this call, but he's going to have to live with it. Right there, it was called a cross-check. He really didn't hit Claude Lemieux that hard, did he? He just leaned into him with the elbow.
Canadians on the power play for 2 of the last 5 minutes and 5 seconds of the third period. And it is Chychrun driving one along. Desjardins able to keep it in. Hooked away from him by Sutter. Sutter tripped up, and there'll be a penalty coming up on the Canadiens as the puck bounces off of Reggett, but now we get a stoppage as the Canadiens touch. And so the Flyers will have a power play 1 minute and 28 seconds from now.
For a nice cold bud?
So where does she come from?
Well, the guy that drew one now ends up being called for one. Claude Lemieux, that's a good call. Ron Sutter just cut sharp in front of Ken Reggett. So Lemieux evens things up. 4:49 to go.
Well, not tonight.
The new Chris Chelios doll. Available at all Spectrum outlets.
Ah, did it have a 24? I didn't notice that.
It was Chelios.
Okay. In terms of taking care of the Canadians, is that seemed to symbolize to me, I didn't notice the number, why tonight is not the night for that. Chelios is out there right now with 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go in regulation time. The 2 teams are going at 4 aside for the next minute, and then the Flyers will get a man and have about a 28-second power play. Keith Acton goes back to take this one. Laying it back on the stick of Murphy. Murphy moving ahead with a pass off the stick of Pelle Eklund. Driving back to get this is Desjardins. Got away from the leaping check of Acton. Kartner pinched along with Chelios, and it came over to Skrudland. Lifted one off the rail, and Desjardins moves over. Murphy right after him. Puts the body into him, but it's McPhee dumping one back out, and here comes Skrudland up the wing. Fires one off the pad of Reggett. Well, you can count the good Canadians' chances in this period on one hand, but there's a reason. They really don't need them now. Pass came off of Tocchet, left behind by Murphy. They've gone to a very conservative style, and that's dictated by a big lead. Gainey hands on to Corson, moving in. Corson couldn't finesse a pass away. Mark Howe set it up for Murphy to clear back out. Out of the penalty box, Poulin, and now that 30-second power play to the Flyers has just begun. Scoreboard clock is ticked down to 3 minutes and 12 seconds to go in the third. Flyers trailing the Canadiens 5-1. Brian Propp moves in, shovels one that is blocked down by Roy and then tapped away. Rick Tocchet pivoting with it, lays it back to the point to Howe. Mark Howe cruising along a wrist shot. That hit off Sutter, chops at it, but it's picked up by Howe. Howe moving in again, set one in front, and that's blocked down by Roy. Scoop control. Penalty time up. Sutter tries to tuck one home.
Mark Howe and Ron Sutter both overskated there, but here Sutter actually pokes it to Patrick Waugh. Prop comes in, tries to shovel it through. I imagine that is what was called right there.
Roughing is the call to Prop at 17-16. Montreal to go on another power play. This will be their fourth one of the game. They have clicked on one of the prior three.
Well, the Flyers can't look at the numbers of power plays that Montreal has had tonight. Mark Howe said after game 2, it seemed like we were killing penalties all night long. Montreal had 8 power plays in that game, and that just takes a lot out of your key players. Woo!
Richer with the billiards play and was able to shovel a quick one, but Regan was able to grab and stop play. Fans planning to attend Sunday night's game are reminded to use ticket number 8. No other ticket will be honored. Fans are also reminded that the Spectrum will open 90 minutes before every home playoff game. Use ticket number 8 in your playoff strip for Sunday night's game.
This puck took a funny carom off the glass. Actually off the boards. Well, it wasn't that funny, was it? Rick Green put a little bit of spin on it.
Canadians may have benefited a little bit from having a little extra practice here that during the regular season they wouldn't get. They'd probably be at the practice rink over in Voorhees, but Rick Green seemed to know what he was doing there, bouncing that one off for Richer as we're down to the last 2:10, and Svoboda rockets one around that is slowed slightly by Regan. Svoboda goes in, gets away from the elbow of Chychrun. Turn back along to Richer, has Rick Green waiting, but Richer will control himself and then dump back off. Well, let's see if Richet's a little more benevolent tonight. No, he fires himself, and that one tipped wide by Corson. Back it comes now to Rick Green. Dumps it along to Svoboda. Svoboda still controlling. Hands back over to Green. Then over to Corson. Corson hands to Richer again. Richer fires, and that one tipped at the front by Regan. Picked up by Svoboda. Dealt along to Corson again. Corson feeds back over to Green. Green watched by Brian Propp, and Green moves it along. Handing on to Corson. Down to the last 35 seconds of power play time. Svoboda is hurt and is getting over to the Montreal bench. And that was well away from the puck, and we can't imagine what it might have been. All the way down the Flyers clear as we're down to the last 25 seconds of power play time. Down to 1:05 to go in the game. Chris Chelios just finesses one in, and we get an offside call against the Canadiens, stopping the clock. You pointed it out to me, Bill. It was very difficult for me to tell what Svoboda was even favoring as he headed towards the bench.
I thought he was holding ribs, but you can see the trainer. He's on the left there. I still don't know what it is. I wonder if he was hit with a shot. The only reason I saw him, Mike, was that I looked out and counted 4 Montreal Canadiens on a power play. I said something's wrong, and I leaned a little forward and looked down and saw Svoboda, but he may have been hitting the ribs or the small of his back.
Robinson then back over to Ludwig and on to Larry Robinson. Off the stick of Kartner. And Ron Sutter starts by. 2 seconds, 1 second, and out of the penalty box comes Tocchet as this one's sent down. We're down to the last 40 seconds of the game. The teams are at full strength. Ludwig directing some traffic, hands it back over to Larry Robinson. Connects back out with Mike McPhee. That one flipped off of Jay Wells at the bench, and then McPhee went right over the side rail.
I've never seen that. That was a spinorama with McPhee going halfway over the boards with his torso and then spinning around and having one leg come down for a moment. He was straddling the bench in front of the Flyers box, or at least at the Flyers box, like he was either coming on or off the ice after a shift. Ron Sutter really reefed him. Watch this. After the pass, McPhee let up a little bit, and that's when Ronnie Sutter really reefed him. We'll let it run here. See the flip? He's half in, he's half out. Mike, it's your shift. You're up.
Kind of like a scissor in the high jump.
Yeah. But that's what happens when you dump the puck and you let up. Boy, that's when you're so vulnerable, and you saw that McPhee dumped it and just thought he was home free, and that's when Ron Sutter decided to crank him.
Pick up the penalty call. Oh, missed misconduct penalties are handed to Tocchet and to Mike McPhee. So that adds 10 minutes to their total. And another $50 to the league coffers per person. Not exactly big-time money, is it? Here is Chikrin dropping one back in. Around it rolls, and Roy just lets it go. Ron Sutter trying to start by. One last rush for the Canadiens, being brought up now by Ryan Walter. Chopped that by Secord. Walter hands over to Corson, and his shot. Pad stopped by Reggett, and that freezes the clock with 9 seconds left. And again, things becoming a little ugly here, but not seriously so. Flyers very frustrated, and the Canadiens don't want to back down, but also don't want to start anything this late in the game.
I don't think there's very much to gain for either team at this stage with 9 seconds to go. Now, we've talked about this before in the playoffs, but when you get this far, the element of intimidation, I think, is so small, it's almost not a factor. That doesn't mean that if you can't make headway hitting a team, you know, and taking the body to them. It's like body punches for a boxer. You don't knock anybody out with them, but in the late rounds, your opposition is staggering. But nobody's going to get intimidated on either one of these teams.
Well, that is it. Ron Sutter having some words with Bob Gainey, but the officials rush in and make sure that the two teams part. Ken Reggett being congratulated by the Flyers for a courageous game at one end of the ice.